Former British Prime Minister Tony Blair appears to love nothing more than putting his name to atrocities committed in the Middle East. Don't break the habit of a lifetime, eh? We can't forget the Labour leader's illegal war in Iraq, as well as Britain's 20-year occupation of Afghanistan. And now, his organisation, the Tony Blair Institute, appears to be at it too. This is a headline from the Financial Times. Tony Blair's staff took part in Gaza Riviera project with BCG. Former UK Prime Minister's Institute participated in meetings on plan to turn shattered enclave into trading hub. The Financial Times reports that staff at the Tony Blair Institute participated in meetings around the Gaza Riviera project with Boston Consulting Group, which included plans to turn the eviscerated territory into a trading hub. In case you didn't know who Boston Consulting Group are, they've played a key role in putting together the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. That's the organisation that forces Palestinians in Gaza to form huge queues for relatively little food, only for the Israeli military to shoot them on a regular basis. According to the FT, the plan was outlined in a slide deck titled The Great Trust, from a demolished Iranian proxy to a prosperous Abrahamic ally. In that title, GREAT stands for Gaza Reconstitution, Economic Acceleration and Transformation. That deck was then shared with the Trump administration. Led by an Israeli businessman, it proposed paying 500,000 Palestinians to leave the area while attracting private investors to develop the enclave. Now, the Tony Blair Institute didn't author or endorse the final slide deck, but 2 members of staff did participate in message groups and calls as the project developed. That's according to the FT's sources. And the paper also reports this. One lengthy document on post-war Gaza, written by a TBI staff member, was shared within the group for consideration. This included the idea of a Gaza Riviera, with artificial islands off the coast akin to those in Dubai, blockchain-based trade initiatives, a deep water port to tie Gaza into the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor, and low-tax special economic zones. The TBI document said the devastating war in Gaza had, quote, created a once-in-a-century opportunity to rebuild Gaza from first principles as a secure, modern, prosperous society. There's something so disgusting about that. Why isn't Gaza secure? Why isn't it prosperous? Why have they actually technologically regressed? Well, that's because Israel has them under a blockade since 2008, interspersed that blockade with occasional aerial bombardments, and is now waging a genocidal war on Gaza. But no. Maybe the people are just backward. Maybe it's not because the Israelis deliberately created that set of circumstances. Now, we should say that the FT reports that the final project covered in the slides differs significantly from the Tony Blair Institute's paper. While the Tony Blair Institute may have been envisaging island playgrounds for the rich and rubbing its hands at that once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that a genocide presents, it also didn't call for paying Gazans to leave their territory. Now, when approached for comment, the Tony Blair Institute denied its staff were involved in the Gaza Riviera project. When the FT presented 12 pages of evidence, the Institute admitted that staff had been involved in calls, but was, quote, essentially in listening mode. God, that's so fucking call me Tony, isn't it? And the spokesperson said, quote, it would be wrong to suggest that we were working with this group to produce their Gaza plan. The final version of the plan, the one shared with the Trump administration, involves all of Gaza's public land being put into a trust for development. The enclave's assets would then be sold to investors via digital tokens traded on a blockchain. And what would Palestinians in Gaza get in return? They would be given the opportunity to contribute their privately owned land to the trust in return for a token that gave them the right to a permanent housing unit. And it involves a number of development projects. So you can see on this map here, in the north, there would be the Elon Musk manufacturing zone, as well as 6 to 8 planned cities billed as, quote, modern and dynamic. In the south, there would be something called the American Data Safe Haven, involving regional data centers with, quote, special US AI regulation. And along the coast, there would be the Trump Riviera, as well as the fake resort islands. David, what do you make of this? To what extent do you think that these reports implicate the Tony Blair Institute in basically what's a super luxe development built on a crime against humanity?
There's, I think, 2 points to be made here. Obviously, it's a grotesquerie beyond imagination to see these maps and to see this dystopian vision that's being outlined for the starving people of Gaza, who are being systematically genocided by the state of Israel, while these consultants are off designing plans for AI centers and Elon Musk's industrial parks. One key point that I think is important, and it's important to emphasize, I know I keep coming back to my origins in the United States. BCG is but one of a series of consulting firms that have played a malignant role, obviously, in the course of this genocide. But in general, they are a cancer on our universities, from which they recruit young people with the promise of a good paying job and a chance to learn about the world of business and beyond. And they're a cancer onto our democracies, where they suck up public contracts and take that money and cross-subsidize R&D towards industrial grade surveillance technologies and military innovations that then are deployed against innocent populations and civilians across the world. I'm thinking of BCG, I'm thinking of McKinsey, I'm thinking of Accenture, the largest consulting firms in the world, deeply implicated in the development of biometric systems deployed by the government of Narendra Modi, in collaborations with the IDF to develop artificial intelligence that can then be deployed to use quadricopters to kill civilians. And yet we allow these major consulting firms to continue to operate in and around our political systems, in and around our municipal governments, sucking up public money and sucking up young talent to do this incredibly not just dirty, but criminal work on behalf of armies and mercenaries across the world. So that's one key piece. And I think we should take seriously the other side of this Tony Blair Institute story, which is the BCG part. And there needs to be a much more robust response from all of us, all across the world, to say, not in our name are we going to have our governments contract BCGs and McKinseys and Accentures who are, halfway across the world committing crimes against humanity. The TBI aspect of it, the Tony Blair Institute aspect of it, obviously there's been this back and forth with the journalists. But I think if we're thinking about accountability here, we should start first and foremost with the role that the Tony Blair Institute now plays in British democracy. It is simply a fact that this institute is gobbling up its own public contracts with the Keir Starmer government. As however much distance the government would like to draw between itself, and certainly not calling itself New Labour, and the Blair years, there is an active financial and very lucrative relationship between the Starmer government and the Institute. And I think it's only coming by marrying a deeper investigation of the Institute's global footprint with a deeper and more delicate understanding of the precise role it's playing domestically, that there can be a kind of robust and enduring response that seeks some kind of accountability for this deeply scandalous episode.
All I'll say is this, is that the Tony Blair Institute has never met a despot whose money it doesn't like.